why did adult use sales start if we didn't have the supply to
Yeah.
let some of these smaller businesses already start selling as well?
So it's a great question. And the way that you stage the market or sequence licenses is something that every one of the 22 states that came before Minnesota grappled with. And every state that's done this has done it slightly different. And the reason it's been slightly different is because each state after them takes lessons learned and tries to incorporate them into their rollout to minimize disruptions, minimize harm to operators, and make sort of the best, most sustainable market that each state can. In Minnesota, one of the lessons we really paid attention to was in a state like New York, where they sequenced the supply chain. So they licensed cultivators first, then they licensed manufacturers, and the plan was then shortly after that to license retail locations. But their retail license process got tied up with 2 years of litigation, which meant that people that were trying to get retail licenses had signed leases but weren't able to sell cannabis. And the growers had a lot of cannabis that was legally grown and could be sold, but there was nowhere to sell it. And so what Minnesota decided to do was to basically get all the licenses out as fast as possible and let businesses make decisions about when and how they open. And so when you look at our chart that we update, I think weekly, that says how many licenses we've issued, operators can see, how many cultivators we have, how many manufacturers we have, and kind of make a decision about, is this the right time for me to jump in the market? And for some operators, it will be if they want to get into a desirable location where maybe there's only a few retail locations available. And for others, they may say it makes sense to kind of sit back and wait for that supply chain to develop before they open a retail location. And I think one of the things the office has tried to do is minimize some of the challenges in the early market. And so, this July we issued what we called a product transition announcement, where we said a lot of the products that are currently available that are hemp derived, that you can find in liquor stores and gas stations, at your hair salons, wherever it might be, to create a pathway for those to be sold in the early cannabis dispensary so that there was product on the shelf. And then the other thing we've done is prioritize these compacts to get additional opportunities and avenues for early product to enter the market. But ultimately, it is really kind of a model that gives the authority and power on how and when to open to business operators, rather than having the office kind of dictate, this is when cultivation starts, this is when retail starts.